and welcome to the inaugural seminar of a new seminar series, CIRTL at 20, brainchild of Centre Director Dr. Catherine Omani, marking 20 years since the formation of the Postgraduate Certificate in Teaching and Learning in Higher Education here in UCC. Coincidentally, it's also the anniversary of the formation of the International Society for the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning in Bloomington, Indiana. And from the outset, Cork's accredited programs in teaching and learning in higher education adopted the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning framework that makes the claim that teaching in higher education should be regarded as a scholarly activity, and the accredited programs at UCC continue to explore the dual professional identities of teacher as researcher of their own teaching and their students' learning. The craft of teaching is very much an art in itself, as Donald Schoen in Educating the Reflective Practitioner towards New Design for Teaching and Learning in the Professions, published in 1987, commented, artistry is a kind of knowing, an art of problem framing, an art of improvisation, and an art of implementation. Professor King will make reference to this quotation. Today's seminar on the artistry of teaching is presented by Professor Helen King, who has edited a volume on the subject and which includes a chapter by CIRTL's senior lecturer, Dr. Anna Santucci. The volume explores creativity, improvisation and context, authenticity and professional identity, and developing the artistry of teaching. Professor King is Professor and Director of the Learning, Innovation, Development and Skills at Bath, Spa University in the UK. Her career in educational development spans nearly 3 decades, including leading roles within 3 UK universities and several UK-wide learning and teaching enhancement projects and organisations, and as an independent consultant collaborating nationally and internationally. Professor King, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Fabulous, thank you, James, and hello everybody. I'm absolutely delighted to be here to kick off your celebrations. So I'm going to share my screen. I've got a presentation here, and I'm really happy to share this. Sorry, I'm trying to multitask. I can't talk and press buttons at the same time. Here we go. I'd be really happy to share this presentation afterwards. James has got a copy if you wanted to forward it on to participants. I'm really happy to share that with you. So hopefully you can all see that.
Yes.
Lovely, thanks for the confirmation. It's always good to know. So I've also got my contact details on there. I'm really happy to chat with anybody outside of this if you'd like to follow up on any of the themes that arise. I'm always delighted to talk about artistry and expertise. So the concept of artistry arises from ideas around expertise. And I first discovered that expertise was a thing when I was reading this book, How People Learn, back in the mid-2000s. This book's published by the National Academies in the USA, and it focuses on cognitive and neuroscience of learning. And it turns out that expertise has got a deep foundation in research, exploring a vast range of professions and pursuits, including taxi driving, taxidermy, surgery, and chess, to name but a few. There are broadly 3 key themes or categories to expertise and expertise research. So neuroscience has explored what's going on in the brain and how interconnections are made as knowledge and skills are gained. Erickson has suggested that a particular type of self-determined and motivated learning that he calls deliberate practice enables the development of expertise. And Bareiter and Scardamalia have suggested that the cognitive space freed up by the automation of skills through experience provides opportunities for growth through progressive problem solving. And there's a third, more intangible element that enables professionals to move from transactional competence to a transformational expertise. And that's their particular ways of thinking and practicing. If you want to know more about the characteristics of expertise, then I highly recommend this popular book by Professor Roger Kneebone. Roger's a surgeon by profession and a National Teaching Fellow based at Imperial College in London. And his insights from reflecting on his own career through medical school and as a GP are complemented by a considerable amount of time spent talking to and observing experts in a range of fields, including a tailor and a magician. But why am I such a fan of expertise? Well, for one, in this highly technological world with increasing use of AI, I think it's deeply human. The extensive research that explores our human traits, brains, physiology, ways of learning, abilities and attributes all relate to expertise. And it also suggests that almost anything is possible and busts the myth of talent. For me, being a bit of a maverick, it's a fabulous alternative to the ubiquitous excellence that we feel we must all strive for. I'm also a bit of a fan of etymology and words, and the derivation of the word expert comes from the Latin meaning to try, which is also the origin of experience and experiment. Whereas excellence comes from the Latin, excuse me, meaning outstanding. We can all try, but by definition, we can't all be above average, let alone outstanding. So through my exploration into the concept of expertise, I felt that its characteristics could be broadly drawn into these three intercepting elements: knowledge and skills, this ongoing dedication to learning and development, and the more intangible ways of thinking and practicing. And after much research, including interviews with National Teaching Fellows and workshops and conversations with a range of colleagues, I've suggested that these three characteristics are manifest in higher education as pedagogic content knowledge. So this is the interaction of knowledge and skills of pedagogy and of the subject area. We've got ongoing professional learning, scholarly teaching, or as we call it at Bath Spa in our education design principles, curiosity-driven pedagogy. And then the artistry of teaching. And if you want to read more about all these broader aspects of expertise, then I highly recommend the book that arose from our first expertise symposium in 2020, in which our 30+ contributors explore this in more depth. But today I'm going to focus on artistry. So ways of thinking and practicing in the disciplines has been a valuable perspective in higher education to consider the development of curricula. But the concept of teacher thinking has mostly only been explored at other educational levels, particularly in relation to initial teacher education. And as James has said, Schoen suggests that inherent in the practice of the professionals, we recognise an unusually competent, in inheritance of practice of the professionals we recognise as unusually competent is a core of artistry. Artistry is a kind of knowing, an art of problem framing, an art of implementation, and an art of improvisation. Interestingly, one of the first things that sort of got me onto this idea of artistry and improvisation was a teaching observation that I had when I was doing a PG Cert in higher education. Someone was observing me actually doing an online webinar, and as they were kind of talking me through what they saw me doing, which a lot of it was improvisation, responding in the moment to questions, and often with technology trying to respond to things going wrong occasionally. So effective teaching in any educational context is a complex dance and on an uneven surface. Or to use Eisner's analogy, it's increasingly recognised that teaching in many ways is more like playing in a jazz quartet than following the score of a marching band. Knowing when to come in and take the lead, knowing when to bow out, knowing when to improvise are all aspects of teaching that follow no rule. They need to be felt. However, it's not just fleet of foot that's required for effective teaching. The concept of artistry also reminds us that this is an expertise of engagement with other humans, and that the personal and emotional elements of teaching and learning are an integral part of the process. Quoting Macfarlane, at root, teaching, especially in higher education, is about authenticity. To be authentic demands courage on the part of the teacher as well as the student. To try to teach in different ways that promote dialogue, to be honest about their own ideological or theoretical perspectives, and to engage with students as co-learners. It's about building a relationship with students based on trust and respect. So artistry also includes acknowledging our own limitations and knowing how to use and work and collaborate with the expertise of others. And I think in this way, expertise has much more humility than the concept of excellence. Artistry also includes the importance of care and empathy, the importance of community and collaboration, both with our students and with other teachers. The concept of expertise necessarily shifts the focus from teacher as didact to the teacher and learners as communal players, where everyone has a valid perspective to share. It also recognises that teaching is not simply about practiced routines, but requires creativity, improvisation and curiosity for what's going on in those learning spaces. Now, once artistry as a teacher develops over a period of time through experience, practice, learning and reflection. Artistry is authentic and idiosyncratic. We each develop our own ways of thinking and practicing to suit the complexities of our own teaching experiences. And this development of our personal artistry and our personal expertise can also be supported and enhanced, and maybe even accelerated, through formal professional learning opportunities from early on in one's career. Until recently, I think professional development opportunities for teaching in higher education have tended to focus on that pedagogical content knowledge, and particularly the theory and practice of pedagogy. But there's now emerging in the literature and education development practice in HE an increasing interest in improvisation, creativity, play, collaboration, compassionate and relational pedagogies, which go beyond the theoretical underpinnings to explore more deeply the application of an authentic pedagogical content knowledge in real life teaching. As learning institutions, higher education providers need to offer strategically aligned and integrated professional development that supports its teachers to make meaning of pedagogy for themselves and for their students, so they can extend beyond competency-based pedagogy, how to teach, towards authentic artistry, how to enable learning. Because, as David Baum said, it's learning that matters most. So my conclusions about artistry, I think, are neatly summarised in the section headings for the edited volume coming out in August this year, including, as Jane said, a chapter by your very own Anna Suntucci. So the colleagues at UCC do talk with her if you want to know more. Teachers in higher education bring a rich and diverse expertise developed from their knowledge and understanding of the discipline and of pedagogy. Some teachers, however, continue to develop beyond competency and towards expertise, embodying a sense of professional identity, continuing to learn and enhance their craft, and taking a curiosity-driven, evidence-informed and authentic approach, with the potential to offer a transformational learning experience for all. And as I said previously, this artistry might be developed through experience, but it can also be supported through professional development. And expertise in teaching is also highly influenced by environmental context. Not all teachers in higher education feel that they have the time, space, or even permission to focus on their teaching and to engage in the continuous learning, progressive problem solving, and creative conversations required to develop expertise. As I suggested in my first book, Developing Expertise for Teaching in Higher Education, if higher education institutions are to achieve their missions of excellence in education, then they must also foster and enable a culture of professional learning for teaching, or scholarly teaching. Without this active institutional level commitment, expertise in teaching will only ever be a subculture of the few. And so to finish, I think I'd be the first to admit that this all raises many more questions than answers. And that's a good thing. It certainly caused me to reflect more on the value and expertise of teachers and other professionals in higher education, and of students. For me, the ideas about expertise in artistry are conversation starters, not definitions. I've posed a few questions for you here, but I really welcome your questions and comments. What has this provoked in you? Thank you.